Ladies and gentlemen, big hairy news.
Hey, hi, kia ora e te whānau. How is everyone? Doing well tonight? I've messed up the going live on TikTok already, Chewy, so I don't think we are, but that's okay. It's telling me to do things.
Do you need to do a dance? Is that
no? What I need to do is just close the whole thing down, and I'll try it another night. Hey team, how is everyone? How are you? How am I? We all good? We happy? Happy, healthy?
I'm good. I now got 4 days off. So I'm glad. I'm glad of that. Bad week.
Oh. Just general bad.
Just challenging. These things come in waves. We've been short-handed. Big IT upgrade, and it's just broken everything. Just terrible week.
I'm very sorry
Glad
to
to be
hear.
Back of it.
Yes.
I'm going to go to Wellington tomorrow. I'm going to have alcoholic beverages and see one of my favorite bands, and it'll be all right, Pat. It'll be all right.
Did you put your leave slip in? Because I haven't officially seen anything to authorize. Has that happened?
Oh, you might have to talk with payroll.
You're talking to payroll.
Oh, fuck. Usually works.
You're talking to HR. Wouldn't it be terrifying if I was in charge of HR? Holy crap, what a terrible place of work that would be. Anyway. Yes, and we'll hopefully catch you on Saturday morning, hopefully doing something a bit secret, because we have got a meetup this week for patrons. If you are a patron, you will probably receive an email tonight or tomorrow with the link to join us in a virtual meetup at 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. We do it virtual because we've got patrons from all over the world. It was lovely being up at Waitangi and meeting people and coming across people. So I think we could say comfortably in 2025, we will probably aim to do a series of in real life meetups as well through the country, probably in the major centres. But the regular one in the weekends is going to be a virtual meetup. If you're not a patron yet and you'd like to become one, then you can do that before, let's say, dinner time on Friday, and you'll still get the invite to come on Saturday for the virtual meetup. patreon.com/Big Hairy News if you want to be a part of that. Also, I have to apologize again. Haven't got the hoodies up yet. I tried today. There's just so much work to do around the place. I will commit to getting it done by tomorrow, because it's our third birthday on Friday, 28th of February, 2022 was the very first ever Big Hairy News. It was run at 11 in the morning, and me and Jeremy Elwood did the first one. We had a journalist from Ukraine on that day. We had Robert Patman on that day. We started at a pretty high bar, and it's been downhill all since then. But the store is open, and look, people have been asking me for various things. I am also in the process of investigating cups and beanies, and someone's been talking to me online. I'm sorry if I haven't replied to you, about enamel pins. That someone said to me they're a nurse and they're allowed to wear enamel pins, and they wouldn't mind a buffer enamel pin. And I'm like, it's a really interesting idea. So I've actually started investigating that as well. So we will go on from there. One other thing, whilst obviously Chewy has just been Thanos'd away, I'm not entirely sure where he is. I'm suspicious that he's probably gone, I better do a reboot. I haven't got a text message from him, so we'll get Chewy back from being Thanos'd away any second, I'm sure. One other thing I wanted to say is well done to you guys watching, and thank you for the conversation. Chewy says restarting. There you go. Thank you for bringing our attention to the conversation between the Prime Minister and old Mikey Boy Hosking. Have you noticed how big that's been in the media space today. Stuff has done multiple commentaries on it, including Paddy Gower doing a video clip. Other media sources have picked it up today. Now, I had someone who will remain nameless, but who has and is a political operative, text me today saying, you guys started all of this. And I went, huh, that's really interesting, because the interview with Hosking was yesterday morning. So why didn't Stuff report on it yesterday? Why didn't these other places report on it yesterday? And I tend to agree with the mystery person who sent me that text message, is that it started to build momentum after we looked at it. So thank you to you guys. We're always up for taking your tips and your tricks. And as a final reminder around what we've got going on, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. If you are subscribed, also please hit the notification bell, because this Saturday at 8 p.m. will be our second and our first for the year. The Leftist Collective will be coming along. Jared Otto, Jordan Rivers, Paul Barlow, Bomber, and me. Sunday evening, this channel, 8 p.m. for this month's Leftist Collective. Now, I know the wee bit traffic. Now, if you listen to the audio podcast, I am talking about my dog, who is female, so that's appropriate. The wee bitch who's on screen with me right now is a little bit more ginger than Chewy, but Chewy is obviously still getting his way back here, and I can't get as interesting a conversation out of this little ginger as opposed to that one. But there you go. People want to meet Nala. There's Nala. She only comes downstairs when there's no one else in the house. You watch. Someone will come home and she'll be off in a heartbeat. Lots going on in tonight's show. It's a story from a couple of days ago, but this idea of what school lunches are today versus what they were. And Carmel Cipollone actually put a tweet out today about other school lunches that have decided to keep their local area preparing those school lunches and what they look like and what they're feeding their kids, as compared to the prison food that's being delivered to many of the kids. I'll tease you with one thing. And you know, I always say this. I'm like, you know, you guys who have got access, you need to ask these questions, please. I need someone who has access. We know you watch. We've heard from you. We know, to put this picture in front of David Seymour and say, what is it? Like I'm being serious. I want that picture of a New Zealand school lunch to be put in front of David Seymour, Erica Stanford as well, and just ask them the question, what are we looking at? What is this food? Identify it for me, please. If you can't identify it, isn't that a bit of a concern around the food that's actually being delivered? So lovely journalists who sometimes sit in our chat and watch us on demand, when you next get a chance to speak to Mr. Seymour or Mrs. Stanford, I want you to show them that picture and say, could you please tell me what this is? Because this is the food we're feeding our children. What is it? Because I don't know. Don't know if anybody really knows. All right. And then also this new citizens arrest powers. We're going to have a look at that as well, because there are some noises being made by some groups that actually have filled enough people with enough concern. We need to talk about it. Start off the show, though. Let's welcome to the show from the Council of Trade Unions, the CTU, economist Craig Renney. Craig, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. I'll just get rid of that little ginger while we talk. Oh shit, major issue, back ASAP, hopefully. That's the message from Chewy. So we'll move on.
I thought you were talking about the National Party there.
I mean, honestly, this is not what we're here to talk about, but the conversation with Mike Hosking yesterday was, it was like, I don't want to be hyperbolic. It was more than embarrassing. I actually think it was kind of dangerous, because it showed this person who is the leader of our country not be able to answer a question. You know, politicians do that all the time. They don't answer questions. But when he realized his non-answer wasn't working, then he didn't have the political nous to change direction. You know, everyone always complains about the, whatever it was, 2007 Rugby World Cup when New Zealand got beaten by France. And one of the big criticisms from the coaching team was the players on the field, when the plan didn't work, weren't able to change the plan. And I was watching Luxon yesterday, and I've seen it again today. Obviously, it's everywhere now. And I'm like, your plan's not working. The thing that's most concerning to me, and as I say, potentially dangerous, he's in Vietnam at the moment. If his plan doesn't work in Vietnam, or if it puts people offside, he doesn't seem to have the capacity to go, okay, I need to move away from my PR talking points and actually back myself. And if he can't back himself, that's terrifying, Craig.
I think if you were being unkind, if I had written that as satire, it would have been rejected as being unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, there are 8 or 9 opportunities to actually change track. There are 8 or 9 opportunities. Actually, a good politician might have just said, listen, let's move on. Let's talk about something else. But it was as if, you know, his program had just gone into a loop.
Yeah.
And there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And what's genuinely terrifying about that is that there's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else on his mind to actually say, well, hang on a second, let's talk about the other things that we're doing. Let's talk about something else. There's no lightness of foot. There's no ability to think. And that really should worry everyone. But yes, I think when I read it, the voices I had in my head weren't Christopher Luxon's. It was a yes minister. Speech, rather than, or a thick of it speech, rather than actually being a radio interview in New Zealand.
Yeah. I mean, thick of it kind of works. That's probably quite an appropriate way to think about it. Honestly, I hadn't seen it before we did the show, so I watched it live, raw for the first time on the show. I was dumbfounded. I was like, please, people who voted for this man, explain what we've just witnessed. And of course, no one has. No one's come out to support him. And I'm like, some of us have seen this kind of thing, not even that bad, for a long time. So I just wonder if next year that interview will be on loop and all the Greens and all the Labour advertising, you know, for the next election.
The thing is, it wasn't about something enormously valuable. We weren't selling the nuclear secrets, the nuclear codes to a third country. This was about whether or not you would have fired someone if they had not resigned.
The one thing I did read online, it was a comment, it might have been a commentary in one of our posts, was someone saying, and I don't necessarily believe this because last night we were Occam's razoring this thing, Craig, going, why did this happen? What's the most, and we couldn't really figure out the most likely. And someone said, maybe he's got something on Luxon. Maybe there's something more. And he has to actually tread carefully. Maybe this wet tissue of a minister who, even though they talk about how fast he wants to move, seems to be the slowest moving MP in the world in his speech and his movements, everything. Maybe he gave Luxon a bit of a what for when he resigned and said, if you throw me under the bus, sir, there's going to be some things you don't like. Maybe. And I don't know if I believe that, but I can't think of logical reasons why he did that.
It would be fascinating to think that there's some compromat on the Prime Minister, but I think probably in all reality, the PM simply had one of those moments that politicians have when they don't have the ability to just say the thing that's in their brain because they've been told not to say the thing that's inside their brain. And I think the kindest thing we can do in this space is just simply say the PM had a senior moment, and that we hope he doesn't keep having these, because otherwise it doesn't bode well at the cabinet table with Mr. Seymour and with Mr. Peters.
But we've said for a long time that many people say in the vicinity that Seymour and Peters are running rings around him. And from that performance yesterday, I'd be like, and everybody else sitting at that table, because that looked like the weakest, most pathetic politician I've seen for a very long time. And I'm not saying this because they're not my team. Like, I'm just, and I know that I'm being objective just to look at it, because none of the people who voted for him have come to his support today, so they see it too. It's not just about us. Anyway, anywho, let us have a chat to you about what we are going to talk about. Report that came out this week. The government is claiming that violent crime drops for the first time since 2018. Violent crime drops for the first time since 2018. Police data show that violent crime have fallen for the first time since 2018, indicating that the government's tough on crime and victims first approach is working. Police Minister Mark Mitchell and Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith say. Now, you jump in, Chewy. I know you're trying to be polite there, Chewy, and just wait, but jump in, Chewy. Now, we were just padding time, waiting for you, Chewy. Now, Craig, you've done some looking into this. You've showed your workings on Twitter. I have your workings on Twitter, but I was wondering, almost like giving you the control. How would you like to do this, and how would you like to talk about the claim that, as you've got there on your Twitter feed, violent crime has dropped for the first time since 2018?
Well, if I might, Pat, can we go back to the original ministerial statement?
We can. It is here.
Thank you. The very top of that, the thing that triggered my brain was the first line, police data shows.
Yep.
I thought, okay. And then if you scroll to the very bottom in the footnotes, because I tend to read things from the footnotes up rather than starting at the bottom.
Can I just say one thing? I'm sorry, I'm not looking to bully anyone here, but you're such a nerd, and we love you.
I really am. Trust me. 8 years at university. So you read that. You read the first line of the footnote.
Let me read it out. Let me read it out. So the first quote of the footnotes for those people. Okay, so we'll refresh this because I've been silly and got into it. The first line of the report says police data show that violent crime has fallen for the first time since 2018. The first line of the footnote says violent crime is not a category of data that police tracks. What?
These two things can't be true at the same time.
Yes, very true.
So I thought, well, hang on a second, and also then, if you go back to the footnote, there's it keeps going because then it says, and therefore data is based off at Chartered Daily's post. And I thought to myself, these are two ministers of the Crown. These are two ministerial warrant holders, and they've put out a press release to the public based upon a tweet.
Yeah.
Not from official police statistics, not from somewhere else. It's just someone's tweet. Now, when we say annual violent crime victimizations in New Zealand, the police do collect data on crime victimizations, and they do break it down by different types of offense. But nowhere inside the police data does it say violent crime.
Right.
And as you can see in the bracketed section there, including common and sexual assaults, abductions, robberies, and blackmail. Right. But what else does it include? Because I don't know.
So you say you read that first line and it sets some sort. And I mean, maybe I'm not the expert here, but I've always been of the understanding that things like murder and things like rape and things like youth crime have all been trending down. So what even makes up the classification of violent crime? Because if those things are trending down and have been trending down for a long time, I think like in the 80s and 90s, murder was the worst per capita. And since then it's been on a trajectory down. There might have been some ups and downs, but in general down. That's the most violent of crimes. So what are the crimes even included in violent crimes?
So things like extortion are in there. Assault not occasioning injury is in there. There's a range of different things, but the honest answer is there is no category called violent crime. It is whatever you choose to make it up to be. And as a consequence, when you say violent crime has fallen for the first time, that is a self-selected category of crimes has fallen during a period of time. As you quite rightly say, Pat, if you take a longer time frame, most forms of crimes, certainly violent crimes, and certainly youth crime, has fallen for a very long period of time. Two, some crimes go up because we actually encourage people to record them. Domestic violence offences go up. The fact that domestic violence numbers go up isn't a bad thing. It's just recognizing something that previously was being hidden from society. And so as a consequence, we shouldn't berate the police force, or we shouldn't berate the public because certain forms of crime numbers go up. There are complicated reasons why some crime figures go up, some crime figures go down.
Because that could also lead to the idea of fiddling the numbers, because if the result was only about number must go down, then we might do something like, so let's just pick an imaginary thing out of the air, like people in emergency housing, that, you know, that a government might make it more difficult to get into an emergency housing because then numbers of people in emergency housing go down. A good result. I mean, that's just imaginary, Craig. I'm not saying that's ever happened anywhere.
Well, I used to work in the UK for a branch of government called the Audit Commission. And one of the things the Audit Commission used to do was find fraud in local government. Right. Police, NHS, all sorts of agencies. In 2010, the Audit Commission was abolished. And we decided no longer to audit local authorities and these other entities. As the government said at the time, armchair auditors would be auditing these authorities. That's not a joke. That's the exact line.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, local authority fraud, it just fell off a cliff.
Amazing. So it's just all cleared up just like that.
Just honestly, it was just this pesky organization turning up and looking at the numbers that was causing all of this fraud and causing all of these offenses. Now, there are also other forms of crime where there are external drivers that drive these things. As insurance goes up in society, you tend to find the number of burglary claims goes up because you need a police number to make a claim for burglary. And with your insurer, same with your car. So there's a range of factors as to why numbers go up. Finally, there's just the good old fact that over the past few years, we've seen a much larger population in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. As a consequence, more people just equals more crime. But if the numbers have to go up more than the population goes up in order for it to be meaningful. Instead, what we have here is a set of numbers that are moving around, and as a consequence, don't actually tell us a great deal about the state of crime in New Zealand, and in particular about all of those offences that aren't really reported or recorded in New Zealand, many of which are actually violent offences.
One question: what do we know about these guys, Chartered Daily? Like, this is the information, the tweet, as you say, that this government is basing this what seems to be a fairly bogus claim on. Who are these guys? Do these guys have any kind of bias? Do we know about them? Are they fair?
The honest answer is I don't know them from a bar of soap, Pat. They are a Twitter stream. I have no idea who actually runs Chartered Daily. I wouldn't want to say one way or the other that they were, slanted backwards or forwards or any other way. What I would say is the Minister of Police and the Minister of Justice have access to hundreds, if not thousands, of public servants who can provide them with up-to-the-minute data on policing and crime and sentencing in New Zealand. You don't need to rely upon, as good intentioned as it may be, a private citizen's tweets where they're self-selecting a bunch of statistics to then put out a press release to say government policy is working.
My goodness. This is, I mean, can you imagine like any other party taking a poll of stuff.co.nz and go, look how favorable we are. Like they have got the people that gets the data, as you're saying. So if they're having to go to this amorphous group that nobody knows whether they're good, bad, or neutral, that's commentary in and of itself. Now, can I ask you this question, Craig? Then sure, you need to start talking because I could shut up. Have we heard anyone else in the media talking about this yet? Because I get the feeling that no one's really pushed back on this yet. At least I haven't heard much about it.
So I think there's an article in the spin-off about the sort of the data, looking very, very flatly at the data and saying these things don't really hold. Certainly, I don't think anyone's really looked or at the correlation that's drawn in the press release and in the tweet between the number of incarcerated New Zealanders and crime. Because the actual press release, if you go back to the press release part, there's a line in the press release that says essentially the prison the number of people in prisons has now gone. This drop coincides with New Zealand's prison population hitting its highest level since 2018. Essentially, drawing an inference that because there are more people in prison, that is why violent crime, howsoever derived, has fallen. Now, I'm here to tell you that statistically there's absolutely zero relationship between the prison population and crime in New Zealand, as there is pretty much anywhere else in the rest of the world. One of the most crime-ridden societies in the developed world is the US, which also has the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, I believe outside possibly of China. And so, these two numbers don't relate. And if you said, okay, well, the number of crimes went down last year, if you believe their statistics, which I don't, but if you believe that, then that's fine. If we go back another year to 2022, there are approximately 1,955 more prisoners than there were in 2022. But the crime rate is higher than 2022.
Right.
So
prison population goes up between 22 and 23, yet according to this, again, amorphous source, that the violent crime has gone up as well. So they can't make the claim that because prison population goes up, violent crime has come down, because it went up between 22 and 23 as well.
Absolutely. And if you look at the final thing always when you look at a chart is to sort of essentially ask the question, do these things, add up? So the prison population chart goes back to 2003.
Yep.
The violent crime chart goes back to 2016, but it's designed to look as if they're the same time period.
Yeah.
Mm. Craig, have you seen that this Twitter profile have answered you?
Yes, and they've given me their selection of offences, which is fine. But again, that's not the same. Why would we have a minister use that data? Why would we not use official police data, which exists? And I put the official police data for the various ANSOC crimes on my Twitter feed. When I make the calculations on the calendar years, so January through to December for the past 3 years, essentially last year we saw a 0.7% fall in the number of violent offences in the category that I've derived. And it goes up from 2022 to 2024. So it falls like this year, but it falls a tiny, tiny little bit. And across 2 years, it's actually up 10%. So there's no minor fluctuations in the data, just demonstrate the fact that you want to derive a particular statistic and you want to draw a particular inference. A longer and a wider look at the data shows that the relationship that the ministers would like to show doesn't really exist.
So this is really, if I can read between the lines here, the case of a government that wants to cheerlead something that they have made an impact, and the only thing that they've got to back that up is a somewhat, let's be charitable, mysterious Twitter account is the only thing that they've got to back them up.
Well, the public can go, you know, anyone who has an internet connection can go and find the police statistics online. They are widely and publicly available, and they can draw their own inference if they want. They can look at their own data. They can do it actually. They can break it down to their own communities by hour if they really want to. The challenge that we have is that, normally speaking, when a minister puts out a press release, it's held to a higher standard than this.
Yeah.
Right. And as a consequence, when someone says something from, as the former prime minister used to say, the podium of truth, then they're doing so based upon something more than just a person's analysis at a particular point in time. We deserve a much better conversation about crime in this country, and a much more sophisticated conversation about crime than the one that's being had here. Because
this is like non-sophisticated. This is the kind of bullshit that we would do. This is the kind of crap that some moron on Twitter like me would put out before I got pushback from someone saying, well, look at the graphs. They're all different. They're different time lengths. What are you trying to say? Like, I'm not saying I'm going to put this out, but you know what I mean? It's like this is a keyboard warrior source of information, when the government who are sourcing that information actually have access to the actual information.
And they could be, the provider of the information could be incredibly sincere, but again, that's not how ministers work. And it shouldn't be the standard that we hold ministers to. Ministers should be able to point to their department and say, we have been told this, and this is how we've generated this information, not that a third party has generated this information. And again, it's a very reductionist conversation, because crime's a really important thing. It affects communities right up and down New Zealand. We want to tackle it and solve it properly. That means looking at it many different ways. It means looking at not just the crime statistics, but it also means looking at the poverty statistics, the drug and alcohol statistics, the mental health statistics, the population statistics, and using that together to draw a really rich pattern of actually, well, how do we solve these problems? If there was genuinely a government that actually believed in social investment, you wouldn't be making these really silly inferences that are made, particularly around the prison population and these numbers. So the challenge that this puts out is that now, where do the ministers go from here? Are they permanently now going to be, using anyone's random Twitter feeds in order to generate data?
See what Kiwi Blog says. I'm sure they'll love those stats and facts and figures that come out.
The taxpayers union have entered
there you go.
chat.
and this is great, right? I mean, fabulous, right? But don't then pretend that a ministerial press release or a ministerial statement has any more value than just anybody else's Twitter.
Yeah. There's some questions in the chat that I want to throw at you if you're all right with that, Craig. But Chewy, do you want to anything else about this story first of all?
The only thing is that essentially is that there's one number that the police that they didn't talk about in there at all, which is that the actual number of police is down about 560 from this time. It's from June 2023.
Yeah, we covered that last week.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a press release about what we've said and the hand-drawn graphs that we've used. It's any day, I'm sure.
Oh, just before you go into it, this is the graph we're talking about. And remember, Police Minister Mark Mitchell has said very clearly the government will deliver 500 net more police on the beat in 2 years. They've got about 9 months to get to that, and so far they're down about 100-ish since they started. So they actually need about 600 from here by the end of this year. So there you go.
Which would be a recruitment drive that we've never seen before in New Zealand. Yeah.
Sorry, Drew, I cut you off.
Oh, and it's completely broken my brain, clearly. Let's hit up those questions.
There's a couple of direct questions to you, Craig. Here we go. One from Howie. Hi, Craig. Do you think political donations is the weakest link is avoiding New Zealand getting maggoted? I guess to avoiding getting New Zealand maggoted. Political donations getting involved with politics.
I think trust rather than, political donations either way, are very important. But I think actually politicians retaining the trust of the public is actually much more important. And it's stuff like this that actually corrodes the trust of the public in politicians. If you're honest and you say, do you know what? We had a number. We wanted 500 more police. We've had a recession. We've lost a lot of police overseas because the pay is better. We haven't got there. Hands up. Here's how we're going to fix it. That stops MAGA much faster than just simply stopping donations to one party or another. Retaining the trust of the public and the integrity of what you say is much more important, because it's not, Trump has won because he's prepared to say outrageous things in order to turn politics into essentially entertainment. And that's, you know, that's not being caused by political donations. It's being assisted by political donations. That's being caused by, in the US, a very long run and very corrosive distrust in politicians of both sides. Yeah.
There's another one here. Gary Stevenson, Gary's Economics, the YouTube channel. Can you ask Craig his thoughts on Gary Stevenson's economics? I'm sure he'll be familiar with him. You know, Gary's Economics from YouTube.
I actually, the first time I saw Gary's Economics was the first time you put it on Twitter. The other day. Hey. So he seems like a very interesting chap. He's a, you know, very forthright person. Like me, he's blessed with a very strong accent. You know, but anyone who's helping to have a better conversation about economics is extremely welcome, because, you know, you hear so much of the politics in both in New Zealand, the UK, and elsewhere, which essentially is just simply the banks or financial institutions or others telling you everything is fine, just carry on, everything is okay. And it does take someone to say, hang on a second, it's actually not, and we need to do something about this. And that's certainly what I took away from Gary's Economics report, was that he's prepared to say in the UK something that not many people are prepared to say, which is that the system is fundamentally broken, and I can see why it's broken, and it's not solvable with a little tweak here or with some technocratic change over here. It needs fundamental reform if you want a different outcome.
And he says very clearly, we played him, he talked to Piers Morgan at the end of last week, and we did an hour playing clips of his and talking to them. And he says it can only be solved with tax. Inequity can only be solved with tax. And his 6 words, I don't know if they're his or he just repeats it, but we're getting t-shirts made, and we want it. The Labour Party, if you're listening, 18 months, his workaround is tax work less, tax wealth more. Beautiful.
Certainly. And if you would follow the balance of taxation in New Zealand, we rely way too much on payroll taxes, so, you know, income taxes, and we rely enormously on GST. We have absolutely zero capital taxes at all, as comparable to overseas jurisdictions. Something needs to change, because just assuming that we're right and the rest of the world is wrong is madness.
Yeah. All right, Chewy, have you got anything else you want to get out
there? No, nothing springs to mind. Sorry.
How's the Nikki No Boats t-shirt going there, Craig?
It's great. The next time I'm in a select committee in Wellington, I'm considering wearing it to the select committee. I just need to find the right finance and expenditure committee, so I can turn up afterwards wearing my Nikki No Boats t-shirt. We'll get an opportunity again in the lead up to the budget, hopefully, and possibly even I can be wearing it during the budget lockup, should I be allowed into the budget lockup this time.
Well, I have been working on that, Craig. You know, our little plan. That is, all the paperwork has been delivered. We'll see what they say.
Actually, there is another series of questions from the chat, if you'll indulge me, Craig. There were sightings of an orange cat, and chat wants to know what its name is.
The cat is called Simba. It is my partner's cat, and when it's not getting attention, it prowls about on the roof behind me, and as a consequence, it's probably having a prowl around there because it's a bit annoyed because I haven't fed Simba yet.
It's like every good ginger, Chewy. When you don't get your way, you go sit out on the roof. Isn't that about right?
Yeah. I go cat mode. I just knock things off windowsills. It's very effective. I am also going to draw the line between your partner having a ginger cat and a ginger partner. Sounds like she's collecting beerware.
I'm going to leave that there for the purposes of harmony in my household.
All right, Craig. Thanks for coming on. We love having you. I think we should get you doing a podcast. We should talk about that. I think you should do your own podcast, and we should host it for you. We should talk.
Yes, happy to help and look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right, Craig. All the best. Thanks for your time, man. Appreciate you.
Cheers, Craig.
When I messaged Craig this afternoon, Chewy, I'll read you the text message. I text messaged him, and because originally, they haven't announced this. Craig was coming on at 9:30 because Paula Penfold was coming on at 9. Paula's had something come up, so she's going to try and join us tomorrow night. So I sent him a message that says, "Can we love you to 9 p.m.?"
Hey.
Hashtag move. Hashtag ... and love. Hashtag ... but mostly move. To which his response was, "Love you too, Pat, and happy to move to that time." Because I'm dumb. Whilst you're away, sorry, you go.
I was going to say, do you know what my biggest problem with having Craig on the show is?
No.
His name is Craig Renney. My high school principal's name was Clive Renney. And I keep on going to call him Clive.
Really?
And but that was a long time ago. Why is Clive Renney's name still in my head?
Whilst you were off buying a new computer and installing the software, I mentioned to people that I'm only repeating this story because one of the super chats talks about it. That news with Mike Hosking and the Prime Minister yesterday. Notice how all the media picked up on it today.
Yeah.
Well,
Paddy Gower is all over it.
A particular friend of the show, who is also, in and around the political world, message man, goes, "You guys are aware you broke that, eh? We didn't break the story, but no one paid attention to it. That they had stuff and all that all day yesterday. They did nothing with it, and then we did it, and a whole bunch of other people picked up on it. And Rewai says you guys definitely did. All other podcasts are picking up on it now a day later. I actually think he's right. I mean, when you break out the the most logical conclusions, yeah. And as we were talking to Craig, I'm going, I wonder if other media will pick up on this tomorrow. So Spinoff's done a story. I love Spinoff, love what they do, fully support them. But, if you're not on like the Herald or ZB or TVNZ or Stuff or 3, they're sort of the big boys and girls, And I wonder if any of those outlets tomorrow will start talking about how this government is using tweets. Sounds like fucking Donald Trump, using tweets as their source. Or next thing they'll be getting a black Sharpie and changing the maps where they want to do things like he did. Anyway,
I'm going to give credit where it's due. The thing that drew my attention to that fucking train wreck of an interview, because I do not watch this. This will surprise you, chat. I do not watch or listen to News Talk ZB and Mike Hosking's show in particular. But it was Mountain Tui.
Yeah, totally.
Instagram drew my attention to that. There these very important stories and this network of left-leaning content creators that are just working together. And it's like a whisper network of people putting out little short bursts of content and going, "But bro, are you aware of this?" And we're going in and we're going, "Yep, we're going to fucking blow the lid off this thing tonight." And that's exactly what happened last night.
Yep.
With that story, and we make enough ruckus and people start talking about it on Reddit and sharing it around and all of that sort of stuff. Then the big boys start to notice. Late, but there's not many of them left.
And so then it wings across the Pacific and ends up on John Oliver's desk. Man, that would be amazing. Wouldn't that be just amazing?
But I was just talking to someone just as I was frantically trying to get my webcam to work again. What we saw with Mike Hosking and Luxon has been brewing for a while.
Yeah. Because those
shorter and shorter with these bullshit answers that he gives.
Well, that's what we've been talking about, because those people who are on the right are going, "You're fucking this up for us. Your ineptitude is going to get you unelected. You're not performing in the polls because of this. And yeah, so we've talked about this. Like those centrists are going, we didn't vote for this, and those far right guys are going, he's as bad as, you know. So, and that's perhaps what you're talking about in Mike Hosking yesterday, basically telling him in real time, if you don't pick your shit up, then you're done for. Wishful thinking, maybe, but yeah. Says the short one, protect roto kakahi. Roto kakahi. I haven't told you this. Should I tell you this?
You should.
I started a te reo course at Te Wānanga o Aotearoa.
Nice.
So I started it after Waitangi. I tend to keep these things kind of on the DL because I'm not a very good student. I'm dyslexic and I often fall short. But yeah, I'm at Te Wānanga o Aotearoa and doing a te reo Māori language course, which is challenging. But yeah, so there you go. Anyway, told you that now. Mr. Arvid's talking about, I nearly said John Key. They're all the same, aren't they? From the same mold. And they've got mold on them. He's just dumb, Pat. Remember Catgate. Oh, yeah, K-A-T. Another one. We love Nerdy Craig, top bloke. Yep. Double late fee for yesterday and today. Cost of, because it used to be $2. Obviously, cost of living has gone up to $2.50. Okay, up to you guys.
I noticed we've conveniently forgotten the person that did a $20 late fee is redefining what a late fee is. Everybody's conveniently ignoring that. I'll just point that out.
The Falconeer says all stats must be expressed as X per number of people. Example, 150 crimes per 500,000 people. Agreed. 65% believe in made-up stats. And what's the other one? 65% of stats are made up as well. Something like that. Kiwi Bird, why look at police data when you can look at X? Oh, you called it X, Kiwi Bird. I don't know how we feel about that. Because remember, these guys are bringing into legislation that you must use dead names. They're like, you must use dead names. So you have to call it Twitter. You're not allowed to. You have to call it the Gulf of Mexico. You can't just let the Gulf of Mexico change its name. You have to use its original name. You have to use its dead name. Sorry, team. They're the rules you made. We're just playing by them. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Is that right? Don't know. Richard says only National can claim violent crime is decreasing when police numbers are also decreasing. Very good. Thank you for your super chat. Mark Mitchell delivered 500 new cops to Australia, says Kiwi Bird. You know we are fanboys of BHN when we all know Pat's dog's name. Yeah, she's only with me now because there's no one else in the house. I'm sloppy seconds. Is that how it goes? That feels a bit wrong saying it like that. XLD says, Chewy, it's almost as if there is a leftist collective. Hashtag shout out. I see what you did there. See what you did there. And Rachel Mars did.
To see if he'll come on.
Who?
Mountain Tui.
Yes, I've been speaking to Mountain Tui. Mountain Tui is a bit like Spider Hoof and enjoys the anonymity.
Serious.
Yeah, serious, not like us, full of shit. Thank you, Rachel, for the super chat. Next time, make sure you say something. And yes, I've been having conversations with Mountain Tui, and I think it's just Mountain Tui has to figure out exactly what they want to do in the public eye, like what they're doing right now. They can just do it. It doesn't impact anything. I don't know what Mountain Tui's job is, who they are, male or female. I don't know anything about them. And I think they're still figuring out what they want to do and if they want to have any public presence. But I asked Mountain Tui to come on this week's one, and he or she, they, I guess we'll have to use, said, you know, I'm still going to think about it. So yeah.
If nothing else, consider this a plug for Mountain Tui doing amazing work. Accounts on Reddit and Instagram and that sort of thing. I really enjoy their content.
Yeah. And also I've talked to Mountain Tui a few times through I think Blue Sky, maybe. Mountain Tui is also very grateful to us. You know, we kind of gave that shout out when Mountain Tui was still very small. And yeah, they're growing now. So everyone should right now go and subscribe to Mountain Chewy. Oh, there you go. There's
Mountain Chewy.
Mountain Chewy. There you go. Mountain Chewy and Mountain Tui. Citizen says, if I call it X, the platform formerly known as Successful. I see what you did there. And finally, NZ Random, 60% of the time it works, 100% of the time. Well, you people playing your maths games. Mountain Chewy. There you go. I feel a t-shirt coming on. Okay.
Hey, Pat, while you're doing the next story, I'm just going to disconnect my camera a bit because the autofocus is turned on when I reinstalled it, and it is annoying people. So I will be back presently.
I quite like the soft focus. It's a bit like I'm watching that Bruce Willis sitcom from the 80s. What was that called? Do you remember? I can't remember.
Is it Moonlighting?
It might have been Moonlighting. It was before my time, but you see the reruns in the 90s.
Anyway,
okay.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. I think that was from a certain time as well. Chewy is still with us in the green room, so he'll hear what's going on. Let us get to the story of a lovely lady. What are we talking about tonight? Oh, yeah, citizen arrest powers. Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this because there are some concerns around it. So the government, it's a really interesting thing. And I don't mean interesting as in good. I just mean sometimes, like when I'm driving a car, when I did my trip to Waitangi and back, I'd often talk about what was happening on the road in front of me, especially when something bad happened. And my wife kind of was like, oh, you're so grumpy with all of these people. I'm not actually grumpy. I just can't believe sometimes when some things happen, sort of identifying that that person is pulling from the left lane all the way to the right lane very dangerously isn't road rage. It's me going, holy shit, did you just see that? I kind of feel a bit the same about this. It's like, holy shit, they're trying to put a police officer in every jewelry store who is the owner of the jewelry store. Could this end badly? And I guess that's the debate, isn't it? Could it end badly? Let's have a look at the story from One News Tonight.
Members of the public and retailers could soon have beefed up rights to make citizens arrests as the government looks to clamp down on retail crime. The changes would allow Kiwis to detain an alleged thief at any time of day using restraints and reasonable force to hold them. But light on detail, there are widespread concerns the reforms will put more people at risk of injury, even death. Jacob Johnson reports.
When Gurdeep Singh's Auckland jewellery store was robbed by hammer-wielding thieves last year, he tried to stop them. He was attacked and left with a fractured skull.
Oof. That is significant.
8 months later, he's still feeling the effects.
Sometimes I get headache out of blue. Sometimes I feel down, low, tired.
He says more needs to be done to empower shop owners.
Retailers are very, very angry with the system and with the offenders and robbers.
Now the government's planning on giving retailers like Gurdeep, and anyone else for that matter, more powers to intervene by widening the criteria for a so-called citizen's arrest. Currently, the law is confusing. In most cases of retail crime, a member of the public can only legally detain an offender if it's at night.
So we're going to change that so that citizens' arrests can be made and people can be detained for any breaking of the Crimes Act at any time of the day.
The minister says the proposed changes would also allow people to use restraints and reasonable force.
Well, not necessarily a headlock or anything like that. It's just holding them steady.
So this is where the conversation starts. So he's still talking about appropriate force. So actually, this thing may save nothing and no one, and it might cause more trouble than it's worth. So he just said, well, like not a headlock. So if you're a person trying to detain and subdue another person, how far can you go? And this coming from up the front, meaning the guy's running the place, I'm just like, I mean, to be honest, I didn't realize that citizens' arrest were so kind of not fickle, but the rulings around them were so narrow at the moment. But just advertising this, standing there with the lady who loves guns and her dark glasses, it just has a sinister vibe to it, even though what they're saying is supposedly for protection for people in their shops. Chewy, what are your thoughts?
I actually thought that was Neo from The Matrix. But I've been informed that I was incorrect. Look, the stuff around citizens' arrest is kind of crazy. There are some firm laws around it. That has to happen between 9 and 6 in the morning is the only time that you can make a citizen's arrest, and it can only be for something that would result in, I think it's more than 5 years in jail.
How do you know that as a member of the public? Just wait there for a second, please, criminal. I'm just gonna look up the statute to see. Oh no, it's only a 3-year sentence. Off you go then.
What have you got in your bag? I need to know the value so I can work out what your potential crime is. It's strange, and I think it's one of those things where people don't know where the limits of their authority or what authority that they have. I understand kind of wanting to clarify it for people. I don't think it's right in the way that it's being used at the moment. Like it's in the case of the footage that you saw from the robbery at the dairy, where like 5 guys come in with hammers.
Yeah.
How is this law going to stop that? It's not. It doesn't combat that at all. Like it's just going to put people who think they can handle a situation in a situation that will go badly.
Well, it's going to do more than that. We'll get to that shortly as well. But think about it this way. What if this was step 1? Like Nicole McKee, Neo, who's standing there, if she could wave her magic wand, what do you think she'd want shop owners to be able to do? Is this step 1 towards that?
It's a Matrix reference again. It's a combo. It's a callback to the fact I called her Neo.
Okay.
The answer is guns. Lots of guns.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's not Neo. It's Morpheus. Got me. I've wrecked it.
But you know what I mean? I mean, for the person who probably would have open carry in New Zealand if it was legal, push for it. I mean, I'm just suggesting based on her background and her desire and love to have as many guns as possible. Maybe this is step 1 towards something else.
The answer to the problem that they are trying to solve is train and keep police. It is not empower your minimum wage security worker at Pack and Save to try and crash tackle someone in the car park and get stabbed with a screwdriver. It is not thinking if someone's going out with the intent to rob, that they definitely, like now they might have gone in with no weapon and just intimidation. Now they're definitely going in with a weapon. Now we have machete fights in a dairy. This problem.
Or the ones that would bring hammers in are now bringing guns in. That's what the obvious escalation. If you, I mean, that's one of the, I don't know if it's, I haven't done the research on this, but my understanding is one of the reasons that police like to be unarmed is it makes the offender far more likely to be unarmed. Because as soon as everyone's got guns, and the bad guys always have to have guns, and I'm not saying bad guys don't have guns sometimes, but always have to have guns because they are aware that everyone else has got them. So an escalation.
It's not like sole charge retailers like dairy owners don't already have a cut down baseball bat under the counter. They're not supposed to. They fucking do.
All right,
you know,
we'll
and I just don't think forcing more confrontation is going to get the results that they want it to.
All right, we'll keep going with the story.
And then the role is to call for the police and to hold them until such a time as.
So hold them, no headlocks, wait for the police, citizens arrest, go for it. MMA, anybody? And we're going to put on like jiu-jitsu courses for everyone so they know how to hold them without putting them in a headlock for the 15 minutes it takes for the police to get there. How does that work?
That happens.
But many groups are raising concerns.
Saying to people they should take the law into their own hands is inviting more violence. It's inviting more people being injured. It's effectively embracing vigilante justice.
The government says it wants to disincentivise retail crime, but there's concern over a lack of detail in the proposed changes.
Issues like, for instance, use of handcuffs.
I don't know if you saw that imagery there, but that guy had a gun. And you can see, there you go, he's got a gun. So do you think in this instance, this gentleman here, who's I'm assuming the shop owner, is going to be worried at all about some kind of citizen's arrest? And this, with the handgun or a gun or a sawn off or something, will now become the most common tool of the robber because they don't want to have to fight someone off because they've got a hammer, but some shop owner is going to take their chance to try and subdue them. So they'll just bring their gun instead, like this guy is. And this is the reaction from someone who has a gun pointed at them. So here's a prediction. You will see more robberies happening in New Zealand with guns after this law becomes law than before it was law. That would be my thoughts.
the proposed changes.
Issues like, for instance, use of handcuffs. We're not advocating for the use of weapons, but we believe it's very important we can use handcuffs as a last resort.
He says the public and even some security staff aren't sufficiently trained to detain offenders.
And a lot of the public do not hold those.
The public aren't trained. Some public aren't trained. Like 99.99%. Is that what you mean when you say some public aren't trained to do this?
So there is a risk if it's not managed correctly.
Even Gurdeep Singh has reservations.
If I know that I have a power that I can use, offender will come in with a bigger power. This time they came in with the hammer, next time they will come in with the gun.
He knows more than most what it's like to take matters into your own hands.
Some concerns, Jacob, about an escalation in violence. What fears have Retail NZ expressed?
Well, Simon, first
you get this as well, right? So now we don't normally play this journalist reporting afterwards, but he's been talking to retailers, Retail New Zealand, who you would hope or you would think would be the target audience to get behind this. They are not behind this.
Well, Simon, first of all, I think it's worth noting this is the first set of proposed reforms from the government's $3.6 million ministerial advisory group on retail crime. And already we've got so many groups coming out and saying, hang on, what is going on here? As you mentioned, Retail New Zealand have come out saying the changes are dangerous and the majority of its members are strongly opposed.
I mean, that's the people they're talking about in the shops, dangerous and strongly opposed. You would think those would be the people, if anyone, who would be most keen for something like this if the government's saying this is going to help. And they're like, this is dangerous. And the members are like, we are strongly opposed to this. Even Nala thinks it's bullshit. She's out of here.
Also, the Employers and Manufacturers Association and First Union have also criticised the reforms. First Union says it's like using retail workers and others as, quote, free cops. So it does make you wonder who was actually consulted on these proposed changes. Now, we did
I can tell you that.
To Minister Goldsmith today. He said a number of retailers were spoken to, but he also noted that like all legislation, this will have to go through the parliamentary process and everyone will have a chance to have their say when this gets to select committee. He said, hopefully in a couple of months.
There you go, Chewy. You know who was consulted? Tell us about it.
Oh, cast your mind back to the last Labor government. Ram raids are out of control, dairy robberies out of control, and there was one person you would always see fronting the stories. Old mate Sonny. What was the group that he, like Dairy Owners Association or something like that?
I remember that.
He was their front person, famously doing a piece to camera outside a dairy where someone got stabbed to death, from memory. One of the things that he was rewarded with when this government came in is he got a big fat consultation job, and this is one of the recommendations that come out of this. It's like no one's seen Sonny since Labor came in. We just don't see him. He's getting paid, I think, about $90,000 for part-time work on this consultation group. But this is one of the recommendations that's come out of it. It's very clearly aimed more at dairy owners or self-owned businesses and that sort of thing, that feel the need that they should be able to fight back a bit more. My concern with this is it's going to be messily communicated. It's going to put people in danger. And as First Union have said and Retail NZ have said, it's going to put people in danger. I think it would have been more sensible to look at better training for security guards and more powers for security guards in the sense of robberies and that sort of thing. But the security companies themselves have a big problem here. Anyone in the chat will know, how many security guards have you seen in supermarket lobbies, by the checkouts, that sort of thing, that would be ready to tussle with someone? Lots of people can get a security job. There's lots of security jobs. They can be just walking around at a rugby game, bag searches at that sort of thing, private events. But this sort of thing, I think, requires another sort of security license, another level of training to keep them safe. And maybe those like higher tier special forces security guards, maybe those guys can earn a level of training that allows them to safely restrain someone,
like a restrainment license or something, like another level up.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole aim of them is to keep someone there until the big boys, the police, arrive, the guys that know the law and what can be done. I think widening people's ability to think they are in the right is dangerous. And I say that as someone that has restrained someone waiting for the police to come. I put myself in a position that could have gone very, very badly. And in that example, the policeman did take me aside and say, okay, I appreciate why you did this, but this could have gone very, very wrong. So, yeah.
A couple of things. You talked before about, let me see in your bag. I want to see what the value is. I wonder if, because at the moment, basically, unless it's a private establishment like a Costco or something, and you need a membership card to be a part of it, people can't search your bag. It frustrates the hell out of me when the people at Pack and Save go, "Can I look in your bag?" Like before you're doing anything. I always say no, but my partner, who you know very well, Chewy, doesn't like conflict. So if she's with me, we typically let them do it. But what this may do is embolden a little bit of confidence in people then to go places they're not allowed to go. Like the Pack and Save here in Dunedin, there's a sign on the door going, "You entering this building gives us permission to look in your bags," but it doesn't.
Yep.
They're not allowed to at all. And I always, when I'm by myself, I just go no. Something else that happened actually. I was at it might have been Countdown. I don't want to be unfair, and I was doing the doot thing myself, and I had two things that were the same. Say 2 bottles of water or something, and I went like this. My left hand, I went boop, and with my right hand, I put that one in. And then I went, and it was
straight to jail.
Started shouting at me. And I was like, and they were like, and they had to come look. And what I saw, I don't know if I was supposed to see this, I saw me coming up on video, swiping with my left hand and placing with my right hand. So it knew that my left hand hadn't swiped and put in, that there was a gap between the two. And it was the same item, right? It was like, there were 2 of the same. So that's what they're doing at the moment to try and stop loss. I'm not going to criticize them for stopping loss, but that's the level at the moment that they're already going. I'm emboldening myself to say you might be a thief. Yeah. Look, someone said to me at the supermarket the other day, I got 2 buns or something, and they went, "Oh, can I have a look?" And I didn't think about it. I'm like, they went, they were, "What's in there?" And I was like, "Oh, there's 2 buns." And they went, "Oh, because some people put a whole loaf in, and because it's cheaper, because it looks the same shape." And I walked out afterwards and I went, "Oh, so you wanted to," I didn't say this in my thoughts. I was like, "So what you're asking me is, did I steal from you?" And that's sort of the vibe at these places now. And if you have that vibe and then an emboldened person, there's one more thing I want to show you, but you want to jump in now. So it just feels like it could go badly.
I've worked in retail for a long time, and I hate shoplifters. I hate theft and that sort of thing. But I will be the first to say, you do not have to open your bag and show the contents to anyone, and nobody can stop you for saying no. That is part of your rights. If you have been seen to be shoplifting, if someone's looking at cameras, if there's a security guard following you around, they are making sure that they've got a good description, that they know exactly what you've taken and where you've put it, and that you are out of the store before they do anything. You haven't stolen anything if you put it in a bag and just wander around the store. It's stupid. The thing with the self-checkouts and the facial recognition, that is something that has gone too far. The supermarkets want to save money by not paying checkout checks and have self-checkouts. Then you have to make that decision that saving is worth the stock loss that you're going to get through there.
Yeah.
Most people are honest. Some people are going to put a porterhouse steak through as a brown onion. That is just the cost of the decision that you make. But if you're then going to look at everyone going through the self-checkout and maybe cack-handedly scanning a couple of water bottles or going, oh, this is one thing, boop, boop, in the bag. Find a better option.
Yeah.
But we know what happens with this sort of thing is people get profiled. And what happens when it's the first, like the minor that gets crash tackled by a gung-ho security guard and fucking handcuffed?
Yeah.
Because that will happen.
There's one other thing I want to share, and you're asking that we were saying who wants this. It's like the Retail Association have gone dangerous. Their members have said, you know, it's too far. This is terrifying, what I'm about to show you. Like, it's genuinely terrifying. There is one person who was jumping up and down with thanks today, and that person was Brian Tamaki. No, but listen, you think about what we just saw at the library. This is what he says. How excited I am that Man Up is about to receive increased powers to police. Where law and order has failed, the law is better late than never. Sharing the citizens' arrest powers to be expanded amid rise in retail theft. So Brian Tamaki, who's trying to make himself the moderator of what he deems acceptable morality in New Zealand, looks like he also now wants to set himself up as the moderator as for what is legal in New Zealand now. The Man Up group are excited to receive increased powers to police, and that is terrifying.
This is what happens when you come out with a bullshit piece of law and scream it from the rooftops before you've thought about it.
Yeah.
Before you've looked at, should we be making this more clear? Oh, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. Brian Tamaki now thinks that he's the fucking FBI.
Yep. Scary.
Wow. That's going to go south real bad.
Let's get some more of the super chats that has come in. Rachel Masters just asking to shine a light on what's going on at Lake Rotokakahi. Time is of the essence. You know what, Rachel? I said last night I was going to look at it, and I did look at it, and I've put some calls into some people, but I will jot it down again because I agree with you as well. I'm just going to write it down here on my notes that I go back over tomorrow. K-A-H-I. There we go. I've written it down.
I won't be here for tomorrow night's show, so I'm just going to say, isn't it amazing that when we weigh up, man, we've got to find something to do with our sewage.
Yeah.
Here's somebody else's burial ground. I know what's more important.
What about Bernard Hickey as a guest at some stage? I think I've spoken to Bernard Hickey. He's Kaka, eh? Did Bernard do Kaka? I think so. And
that's in the bird, not the poo.
Well, he probably does both. I have spoken to him, and I think the last time I spoke to him last year, I was a bit like, real busy at the moment. I love what you're doing, sort of thing. So, yeah, we'll try again. Here we go. Rachel just flips it completely. Does it mean we can arrest Brian Tamaki? Well, if he's committing all those guys who are at the thing, maybe. Mindy offers $2 for sloppy seconds. Exaldir as security. This is stupid and dangerous. Yep. Junk Rig Sailor. The stupid new law will last as long as a supermarket worker gets seriously hurt or worse by someone for trying to hold them. It's the cops' job. They should do their job. Hard on says Costello gives strong cipher vibes. There's a little throwback again for you there. Riwai says in security, the term used is minimum force required. If someone has a weapon, instantly maximum can be used, but as security, you could be charged with assault and lose your license. Rachel again, gosh, Rachel, super chats. Aaron Hendry said something along the lines in response to this. Products we can afford. Products we can afford to lose, people we can't.
Yeah. And that's what's been drummed into me as a retail worker for ages. I'm not getting fucking stabbed for an iPhone. Like, it's not what I'm there to do.
Yeah. Exaldir, SEC officer, security officer license can be obtained in a Wheatbix box. It's that easy. There's no proper chaining. More from Riwai. You can tell the people who work in security, the ones who've jumped onto this one to give us all that facts. So thank you for that, guys. You have to be level 3 security training with control and restraint to be able to detain. Ian Fraser says, and this is, sorry, as there is insurance, no one should confront the offenders. which is also why the drug market is so violent. Mr. Arvids, what crazy shit does this mean for nightlife? Yeah, perhaps. James Black, we need better self-defense laws first. 500 cops? Yeah. Daniel says we need a whole night on supermarket rants. You know, I did a couple there. I apologize about that. Citizen says we need a legally recognized list of hate groups. Destiny needs to be the first on it. That's interesting, actually, Gold. They've done that for gangs. I wonder if they've done that for hate groups. An interesting point. Mr. Arvid says we need to protect Goldriz. Yeah, as soon as you said, Chewy, about the walking around the supermarket, I was like, you mean like Goldriz did when someone leaked that she'd been done for shoplifting, and she basically, like I do when I don't have a container, put something in her pocket to then get out at the other end. Hadn't left the store. Finally, Bubba says, ooh, money, Pat. Maybe. All right. Let's move on to the last story. It's not a hugely long one. It's actually from a couple of nights ago, but there's been a bit of an update to it this today, or at least an update that I think is worth having a look at. This is a bit of a sad story. This is about a group that were doing school lunches that, for some strange reason, Chewy, I don't know what's happened out there, but are no longer the local group doing school lunches.
A last supper. After making over 270,000 school lunches, a community came together to serve those.
Sorry, let's just have a look at those lunches as we're doing this. They're burger buns. They've got, looks like they've got crumb chicken in them. They've got lettuce and cheese. Pretty appetizing. Those look like muffins, like those kind of, you know, McDonald's type muffins. Pretty good food. That looks like pretty good food to me.
That had served them, following Associate Education Minister David Seymour's overhaul of the school lunch program.
And Erica Stanford's. Don't leave her out.
The $3 lunches have copped criticism from schools and students for quality, dietary compliance and lateness, which Seymour described as teething issues. But for charity-based organisations like Nourish Oraka in Shirley, one of Christchurch's most deprived suburbs, the new regime means more than the loss of a delivery contract.
When we set up the Free and Healthy School Lunches program, it was about providing a free and healthy lunch to kids, but it was also about creating jobs, connecting schools with communities, and actually dealing with overall well-being for the kids and for their families. I think we've lost a lot of that with the cut price lunches that the government's now delivering.
In 2 paragraphs of a 14-page cabinet report from last September, Seymour acknowledged an estimated 140 lunch contractors like Nourish Oraka would be impacted.
140. 140. Small business, parties of small business, 140 small businesses that you're putting out. Holy mackerel.
But the report didn't say how many people would be made redundant and didn't discuss the social impact of shifting to a centralised system.
It brought employment, it brought joy, and Nourish also offered food to other groups. Now it's gone. It's a sad loss. It's unemployment. Children are missing out, and it just makes it harder on this community.
Seymour sympathises, but says the costs of the old model were impossible to justify.
The government cannot spend twice as much to support or prop up businesses and charities when its real goal.
So we'll spend half as much and give them 1/10 of the product.
Is to deliver affordable and nutritious school lunches for children.
That's no comfort to Nourish Oraka's employees. Most of them were solo mothers who had been out of the workforce for a long time and found it impossible to find jobs.
And now they'll be back on the dole or back on the DPP. And then this government will be doing whatever they can to get them off that, when they were at least in part off that before this government shut down the place that they were off that for, or at least part-time off that for.
Fitted within school hours close to home.
It was a business that local people worked in. It supported local kids could come in here and get after school jobs. There was a number of people who this was a pathway back into work for them. So there were so many positive things that came out of this business, and all of those go when this business goes.
Their job is to do their business. Our job is to deliver healthy school lunches to children at the most competitive price and the best quality.
And just best quality, just Yeah, bear with us, baby birds. Remember, he said it twice. Best quality, competitive price. Cheaper, competitive price, best quality.
We've done our
Best meal
job,
you've ever had.
and it's still free to seek work and make the most of their time as well.
The new lunches have proved unpopular with some students.
I have felt sick before eating them because I just don't like the flavour of it.
It's fair to say David Seymour has more than enough food for thought.
Oh, God, puns are the worst form of comedy. So the reason I wanted to bring this up is that there was a post by Carmel Cipollone today. I visited Glen Eden Primary School this morning. It's literally up the road from my electorate office. I always feel welcome there. Thank you, Donna Sojan, principal, and Catherine Aben, deputy principal, for hosting me. They are still using Lunch with Crunch to do their school lunches and have no complaints. Beautiful Kai. They are sad for Lunch with Crunch, given the number of contracts they lost and the 30 people who had to be laid off after David Seymour and the government changed the program. They're also worried about next year when they will have to switch to Compass. Clearly, the caliber of school lunch the kids are getting from their local provider is of a much higher standard. At what point will Erica Stanford step in and clean up the mess? It's only going to get worse if Seymour's changes and the reduced funding are not challenged. She is the primary minister of education, and this should be a priority for her. And there's an image of the lunch that they called Crunch. Lunch with Crunch.
That image bigger? I really want to take it in, like, and big in that picture. Look at that. Okay. Chat, I apologize ahead of time for this jump scare.
Yeah. I've
Which
got
one
some
would you
more
eat?
to go. Yeah.
Which one would you eat? This was today's. Which one? Honestly. Hand on heart.
So for people who are listening to the audio podcast, the Lunch with Crunch has got coleslaw and it's got some rice. That looks like egg, like an egg omelette of sorts. Maybe it might be chicken strips actually, and a orange slice. Right now, remember, and we're going to. I've actually bookmarked this page now, Chewy, because I get the sense that it will come back again and again and again. I'm going to say this again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This is what we were promised. This is the food that this government said would be school lunches. There's slice, there's fruit, there's yogurt, there's buttered chicken, there's rice and veggies. This is what they promised. This was their standard, right? And this is what they're delivering. This is their standard. This is what they're delivering. This is what they're delivering. And I said it at the start of the show, and I'll say it again if any journalists have just joined us. For the love of God, put this image in front of David Seymour and ask him to identify what it is. Lunch with Crunch, we can identify that pretty much. I mean, that's probably breaded chicken. It might be egg strips, but it's pretty identifiable. The food that you said you would be providing the school, we can pretty much identify it. Look, that's an apple. That's fresh and fruity. That's some kind of yummy slice. There is buttered chicken there. We can pretty much identify it. Rice and veggies, buttered chicken probably. That is what's being served. Honestly.
Do you know what it looks like?
What is it?
It looks like, Pat?
It looks like someone's internal organs.
It looks like if you go on an old video game, like on a PS1, it looks like a low-res image of a dinner.
Pixelated.
Yeah. Just like, okay, so from here in Dunedin, now we're getting to the pointy end of this. People, I think, have been like, oh, well, we'll see how it goes. We'll let it go. There have been complaints from Dunedin schools. MPI investigating school lunch complaint. The meal on the left there is apparently butter chicken.
Oh, good God.
I assume that they got the recipe from a game of telephone.
Can we do this? Just don't go anywhere because I want to contrast it. So the one on the left is butter chicken.
Yeah.
That's the butter chicken they were promised. The one on the left for Chewy's, that's supposed to be butter chicken. That's what they were promised. So we say this all the time, and I don't mean to bore you with it again. We will hold this government to the standard they insisted the last lot were held to, and the standard they set for themselves. They set that standard, and that's what they delivered. Do you want me to give you the screen back? Do you want the screen?
Yep, sure thing. So
Yes.
there have been mislabeled meals, halal friendly, but absolutely nobody's checking on that. They have been burnt. They have been late. They haven't shown up at all. They've had meals mislabeled for kids with dietary restrictions or allergies. One school just had to go out and buy a whole bunch of pizzas because the food didn't arrive.
It's not one school. We had a story a couple of weeks ago. I think we were saying that principals are having sausage sizzles. Teachers and principals are bringing in pizzas sometimes. That's not a one-off. That's something that has been happening.
MPI says it's also aware of an incident where school lunches arrive in a Whangarei school with cellophane lids of the packaging already coming off. Burnt, already open meals, not a food safety issue, apparently. We've gone from, oh, okay, they're too expensive or whatever, but they are employing people in the local community. They are using fresh ingredients. They're literally nutritious. They are giving people a way back into employment, and it's localism. All of that is apparently bad, costing the government too much. And there is no greater example of what we have been saying about this government since the start. They know the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
Yeah.
The health and nutrition of the kids for learning, not important. Employing people in the local community, not important. No value. Using local and fresh produce from local producers, there is no value to that. There is value getting a controversial company that has been caught out on scandals, has been lying about the ingredients, has done bribery overseas, and is a big overseas corporation. We have just funneled public money to them. We have gone from wastage of around 5% to wastage of around 70%. So who cares if these meals are $3 if 70% of it is going to landfill? Like, it doesn't matter at that point. They could be free. They're going to landfill. It doesn't matter. You might as well not do. We might as well not do it. That's what it is. You guys bitched and moaned about food for kids so much, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, and that seems to be an accusation by some out there that they're actually just front loading all the bad shit, and then next year there won't be school lunches. They'll just get rid of it altogether.
Shitifying a good idea, so we'll never try it again.
Look, I mean, I don't think this way, although Chris Hipkins did educated all of us when we said you don't have one-term governments, and he says, well, actually under first past the post there would have been several of them if it was an MMP system, so I'll stand corrected on that. I still struggle to think this is the likely scenario, but people, as Sabre says, let's make this a one-term government. If any government's going to be a one-term government based on how it's being led, these guys are going to try their very, very best to steal defeat from the jaws of victory. Howie says killing local lunch was just a flex. The dollars are insignificant. The symbolism serves the bullying. It's a very good point. I like that. Well, I don't like the point, but well said. Promise from a kitchen, delivered from a factory, says the Falconer. NZ Doom, $17 super chat. Thank you for that, sir. It's very generous. Seymour's a liar, given the whole lunch contract to one private for-profit company is not competitive. It's a monopoly, and the kids aren't getting full value. Compass shareholders are taking a cut. Of course they are, because that's the point. They're not $3 meals. They'll be $1.50 meals with $1.50 profit, or there'll be $2 meals with $1 profit. That's what they are. So don't believe the hype when they say it's a $3 meal. It's not. It's a $2 meal, or maybe even a $1 meal. And that's why they look like they look like. John, thank you for the super chat. Oh, Australian $10. That's like 40 New Zealand dollars or 80 or something like that. I don't know. Capital gains tax equals great lunches and so much more. Yep, there you go. You got it. What are we doing? We're going to tax work less and tax wealth more. Isn't that what we're talking about? Tax wealth to feed our kids, says Arvids. Very good. There you go, Chewy.
Pat, before we go, I'm going to read another story from the ODT.
We've left. We're not here anymore.
What do you mean we're not here anymore?
We're already gone. We've left. We left 5 minutes ago.
860 people still think we're here, so I'm going to go with that. Look, I'm just going to read you this other story from the ODT. I'm not going to put it on the screen because the ODT doesn't like it when I do this to their paywall stuff, so I'm just going to read it to you. An Otago principal is convinced that prisoners are being fed better than her students. Where have we heard that before? On this show.
Well, we've showed it, yeah.
We said that. Her students have had to endure mac and cheese for several days straight. East Otago High School Principal Helen Newcomb said she was throwing away more lunches from the Healthy School Lunches program than students were eating. This came as the new regime has been slammed nationally for delivering poor lunches since it was launched by Associate Education Minister David Seymour. 2 other Otago schools, both from Dunedin, said their pupils had also been fed mac and cheese for at least 4 days straight. Ms. Newcomb said students would look at the food and walk away. The mac and cheese smells so bad, when it gets delivered to the school office, the whole office just stinks. She says it looks like a thick, pasty mess with a little bit of ham in it. It's got to be worse than what prisoners are fed. I think on all levels, it's just a disaster. When the mac and cheese was delivered on Friday, for the 4th day in a row, the school decided to cook scones in the food technology room instead. The meals were supposed to be nutritionally complete, but there was no fresh fruit, vegetables, or even seasoning. Now, I know Otago has a reputation on seasoning, but we do like a little bit of pepper. The government was saving money making the meals, but many of those meals were going to waste. Of the 190 meals the school received on Friday, only 10 were eaten.
Whoa. Hang on, 190. Hang on, 190 and 10. So if it was 200, that'd be 5%. So that's a 95% waste.
Students preferring to go hungry into the afternoon than eat them. While some students were bringing their own lunches, many could not afford to. Some don't even have breakfast before they come. And for a lot of the kids, that is the meal for them for the day. She sent an email to her local MP, Miles Anderson, Mr. Seymour, and the Ministry of Education. She had not received any response from Mr. Seymour or the ministry. The situation was much better last year when the meals were delivered by a local Palmerston Foursquare supermarket. Pupils at Green Island and Bathgate Park schools had also had mac and cheese for 4 days straight. Green Island Principal Aaron Warrington said the government had overpromised and under-delivered for the program. He said that they were scrambling to get the food out, and it showed that the children were not the priority. I don't care how much you'd like mac and cheese. You're going to get bored of it after 4 days. It can't keep going like this. The kids are not going to want them. The ministry was unable to respond to the ODT's questions by deadline because they don't care.
No. Well, team, Chewy's not with us tomorrow night. I am with us. I'm here. I'm a bear. Get over it. So we'll see. I haven't got a replacement person. I was thinking that, our very first show, Chewy, not you and me, but BHN's very first show was the 28th of February 2022. I did that with a few people. Maybe I might see if one of them wants to come on. It's a bit of a throwback, and maybe we'll open up Discord tomorrow night as well, so we can have a bit of a chat. Thank you for being with us tonight. Is there anything else you want to add before I play? Someone keeps asking us in the chat. I haven't replied to it because I'm a terrible human being. What's the song that we go out to? What's the name of the song? It doesn't have a name. This was someone wrote.
Does it have a name?
Well, I don't think so. It's just called. It's a BHN theme tune. Theme tune. I think someone thinks.
Brendan will have to tell us.
I think it's. Someone thinks it's a proper song that we've just sampled. It was a song written for us. Well, that we paid for.
We had a competition. It was fun.
Earned the young man $500. So yes, we'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. And Chewy's going to have fun playing with his friends in Wellington, I'm sure. And remember, if you're a patron, Saturday morning meetup. If you're not a patron, not patreon.com/Big Hairy News.
You can have a
and, and you'll get yourself into the credits. Just like this. See all these people. They're lovely, these people.
Help us settle a debate, whether it be thoughtful or funny, even if we're all creatures of hate. It's a fine line that we're walking together. For better, push aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have the hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can't afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting bees from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a walk.
See how wide that dog is? She's heard noises. People are upstairs. She is ready to get out of here like a loaded spring. You want to watch? Watch this. Hey, Nala, you can go. You can go. And she's gone.
And you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed.
All right, team, thanks for being with us tonight, and appreciate all of you who have been a part of what we've been doing for the past 3 years. We'll talk a bit more about the history of BHM maybe tomorrow night. Huge thanks to Craig Renney for coming on board, and thanks, Chewy, for making time to come back and see us, even though you had to buy a new computer halfway through the show.
Oh, yeah, like you don't have trouble with system updates.
Never. What? Trouble? Nah, you're crazy. All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy News. Be well, be safe. We'll see you then. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.